Topic: The Victoria Wala by Rumana Hussain. Imam Baksh believes he is about 60 years old, although he could, by his own account of it, as easily be just 45. He was just 7 when his parents decided to move from Sevan Sharif to Karachi. 38, or was it 53 years on, he cherishes his childhood memories of Sevan, where his uncles still live, and feel blessed by the great Sufi buried there. Imam Baksh grew up in Karachi, watching his father drive a horse carriage, the Victoria. When his father died a few years after his mother passed away, Imam Baksh inherited the carriage, together with the horse. When the horse died 25 years later, Imam Baksh was saddened, but only for a day. He shrugged his shoulders, counted his money, which wasn't enough to buy another house, and got a loan from a friend, who was also his neighbor, and together with all his savings, bought a new house. This horse was 5 years old. Bought a new horse. Imam Baksh has not given his horse a name. A horse is a horse. How can he have a name? Imam Baksh tells the children who ask him questions while riding in his Victoria to their schools or homes. His main income comes from providing rides to school children. As many as 15 children ride the carriage at the same time, with at least two of them sitting at the front with Imam Baksh. Sometimes when alone, Imam Baksh would ponder over this business of having a name for the horse. He has been taking good care of the nameless horse, and that's all a horse needs, doesn't it? If there is anything wrong with the animal, like a fever or an injury, he takes him to Saeed Manzil adjacent to the Radio Pakistan building, where Richmond Crawford Veterinary Hospital located. Even the vet has never asked for the horse's name, Imam Baksh wonders. And if the vet doesn't need it, who else does? Who has ever heard of a national identity card for a horse? He breaks into a smile at this ridiculous idea. Imam Baksh remembers that his father's horses were also nameless creatures, and although Imam Baksh grew up with two of these animals, he is quite certain that the subject of naming a horse never came up. He remembers that when he was still quite young, the first horse they owned was all patchy, and could have been called Riley or something like that after the Riley, while the second one had a tanned and a handsome body, like a wrestler. Imam Baksh knows that if a horse is looked after well, it will live for around 30 years. Otherwise, it can die in just a few years. He therefore spends about 300 rupees on channa, the grass, hay, and barley that he buys for his stallion from Lee Market every day. Horses also need gallons of water. He therefore keeps a large bucket handy for the purpose. There was a public tap at the Pakistan Chowk roundabout where he fills his bucket. Every night the horse and carriage are chained and left close to the roundabout near the Sarnagati building. But Imam Baksh is oblivious to the fact that these buildings were historical landmarks and milestones. He thanks God every morning when he sees that his horse is still there and that no untoward incident happened during the night, and that his horse and Victoria have not disappeared. Imam Baksh lives in the vicinity of the Pakistan Chowk roundabout, close to the Bholu Akhada. He remembers that once upon a time, this Akhada, a muddy wrestling arena, used to be a landmark in the area. Bholu Pelwan and Aslam Pelwan were famous wrestling champions. But gone are the days of Bholu and his brothers and sons' wrestling legacy. Imam Baksh is aware that these days there are wrestlers of all kinds and backgrounds. Every night, when he hangs out with his friends for a gupshup session, he hears of men and even women who flex their muscles in various arenas in this city. Imam Baksh thanks his stars that, similar to Sevan Sharif, Karachi has its own share of saints and their tombs that protect the city. What would otherwise have become of this city? He and his friends often claim that the only reason it continues to exist and ensures the existence of its citizens is the prayers of the long dead saints. Who has heard of a place that continues to thrive with millions of people despite the gun battles, the riots, the arson, the robberies, the bhang, the charas, the heroin, and the briberies that are a part of this city's way of life now? Imam Baksh has a wife and two children. There are two more, but they died in infancy. Imam Baksh did not attend school, but his children attend a government school. After accounting for the horse and the Victoria's maintenance expenses and the monthly payoffs for the loan, he manages to save about 7,000 rupees. His wife is not a happy woman, understandably. She craves for new clothes for herself and their children, and for the good food that gets cooked all around her in the neighborhood, but not in her own kitchen. She also wants to go for rides in Imam Baksh's Victoria, especially ever since he told her that once upon a time there was a queen called Victoria who ruled the whole world. Her sultanate included small towns like Sevan and Sujawal, and big cities such as Karachi. Imam Baksh's wife, his parents lived in Sujawal. Baba, she also ruled Vilayat, he had said to her. The poor wife was quite shocked and thought that her father-in-law, Vilayat Baksh, was ruled by this woman, but she soon decided that this was probably precisely the reason that he called his carriage Victoria in reverence to the great ruler. Imam Baksh's wife did not imagine herself as a queen, but she knew that there was something regal about sitting in a Victoria and being driven about, even though its driver was her own husband. For Imam Baksh, his wife was just like his horse. He worked hard for her, arranged for her dana pani, and when she wanted to go out, she also put the blinders or blinkers on her face, just as he did on his horse. He believed firmly that just as the blinders were needed to keep the horse going in one straight line and direction depending on how Imam Baksh held the reins, tightening or loosening them, his wife too would not go astray if he kept a tight rein on her and she put on her burqa. She was 10 years his junior, and he did not trust anyone who was younger than himself. She had a name, but he never used it. Whether he called out for her or referred to her in conversation, it was either as his wife or the mother of his children. When she fell ill, which wasn't too often, thank God, he took her to the shrine in Clifton, but never in his Victoria, as there was a bridge that had to be crossed, and Imam Baksh knew that horses and carriages were not allowed to cross over the bridge. His wife never believed his stories about the bridge. She had once seen with her own eyes that horses and even camels frolicked along with people on the sandy beach inside the great ocean at Karachi. Rubbish, Imam Baksh, she always said when he made her travel by bus. He helped her climb the women's compartment and made his own way to the men's section from there, so that he was close enough to be able to keep an eye on her. One day Imam Baksh picked up four giggly young women, college students from Ferrari Road, who wanted to be dropped off at Eidgah. The girls struck a deal with him for the fare and didn't stop to breathe as they chattered all the way. Even the horses' ears pricked up continuously, trying to pay attention to the girls' prattle. When they reached Bandar Road, one of them craned her neck and, looking up at Imam Baksh, asked for his name. Imam Baksh almost fell off from his coachman's high seat. No one had ever asked his name. It was always strictly a negotiation about destination and fare. "Why do you ask?" he responded, somewhat roughly, trying to conceal his wonder and delight. "Oh, it's nothing. We were just discussing our home assignment and we have to write something about a Victoria Wala. So it will be good to know what type of names your type of guys have," the girl said casually. Imam Bucks pondered at some length about this. He looked at all the people walking on the road or traveling inside buses, taxis, rickshaws, motorbikes, and private cars. He also glanced at the shopkeepers, their salesmen, and shoppers at the outskirts of the Jama cloth market, and the Eidgah shops across. He was searching for a suitable name to tell the girl, as his own name seemed archaic and one that came with a label. All Victoriawalas had similar names: Imam Baksh, Vilayat Baksh, Rasool Baksh, Rahim Baksh. He mulled over the names of his family's male members, even those who still lived in Saiwan, but could not come up with a single name that was different. He looked at the posters and billboards all around, and tried to remember the name of the men whose faces were plastered there. He concluded that, just like his wife and his horse, he too would remain nameless.